Good morning, everyone. Welcome in this Smartees webinar on collaborating for growth. I want to welcome you in name of myself, Nathalie, and our two speakers for today, Bert and Dries. And they will guide you through the story during the next 35-40 minutes. Just one practical thing: when you have questions during the session, don't hesitate to use the community chat on the left, and then after the session, we'll be happy to answer the questions for you. So then I'm going to leave the word to Bert and Dries. So if you're ready, go ahead. Good luck.
Thanks, Nathalie. Hello, everyone, and thanks for being here on our webinar about collaboration for growth, or how we like to call it, Embrace the Unexpected. I'll first let Bert introduce himself, as he is sitting next to me, and he will be my co-presenter today.
Hello everyone, indeed, thanks Dries. I'm Bert van de Kastelen, and I'm Senior Research Manager at Insights Consulting for about 5 years now already. I started at Insights immediately after obtaining my PhD degree on consumer innovativeness. I mainly focus these days on innovation and usage attitude research for FMCG clients such as Alpro, Chiquita, Mondelez, Nespresso, etc.
Thanks, Bert. And I am Dries, 25 years old and Senior Research Consultant at Insights Consulting, and mainly working for the fast-moving consumer goods sector. In my spare time, as you can read on the slide, I love to play football and golf, or visit a trendy bar or a good restaurant, of course. The presentation of today then is all about growing. How can companies grow, taking into account the difficult economic landscape that we are facing today? But first things first, we believe we should start this presentation by showing the menu of today. We will first discuss 7 challenges that will show how dramatically the business environment has changed. And in the second part, we will show 7 possible solutions to overcome these challenges. However, I want to already stress that this is not necessarily the case, that one solution solves one specific challenge. So it's not a one-to-one relationship. The first challenge is that we see that nowadays it's not evident any longer for companies and economies to grow. So the first challenge is definitely globalization. 10 years ago, globalization was the solution for growth, while nowadays globalization is the challenge itself. A new market is always different from the markets that companies are currently active in. Plus, you are facing a lot of different and local players in that market, and they know the market and the consumer better than you do. So, penetrating a new market is no longer just a copy-paste of the successful formula from the home market into the new market. No, it isn't. It isn't at all, actually. We really need to think about who will our competitors be, what will our price setting be like, and for example, what will our brand image be like, and so on. Copy-pasting is not the solution here. The second challenge is that things go faster than ever. For people in the business, I don't think I need to give much explanation on this, as this is everywhere around. The due date of creations and innovations becomes shorter. Trends and subcultures come and go, and it becomes extremely difficult to launch a product on the market that does not already exist. It's all about being fast, and especially being faster than the others. Next, we see that there is a young generation, Generation Y, that is ready to take over management positions. They have a complete different vision on management and make use of other KPIs, and they are questioning the current management even. This means an important change in how companies will be managed in the future, and it also will be very challenging to deal with this. Challenge number 4. Today, mass marketing, as it was done in the past, like for example on Times Square, like we see it on the slide here, won't be effective anymore. Consumers expect relevant messages from brands that are specific and preferably personalized. Companies should convince consumers why their offer, their product, or even their brand is relevant and the most relevant product for them. We also face new technologies, and it's sometimes difficult for a company to decide where to communicate or what specific social media to use. For example, Snapchat, Vine, and Instagram are heavily used today. And from a strategic point of view, it will be important to think more in depth about what content to share via what specific channel. Consumers are asking for 24/7 relevant content via the channel they are using at that specific moment of the day. That will be a huge challenge the coming decades. And what about brands? Are they as strong as we believe? Sales of branded products in Western Europe decreased in 2014 with 0.5%, while actually the private labels gained 0.5%. Also, discounters increased even with 1.9%, so brands are facing more competition than ever. It also becomes more socially acceptable to use private labels when having guests at home, for example. And maybe you won't show the private label packaging to your guests, but consumers are confident that their guests won't taste the quality difference. So whether brands are still strong is the question, and we will give the answer in a few minutes. The final challenge is actually the tunnel vision of companies itself. We know, or we all know how things go. R&D develops a product, and only when the product is ready, it goes to the marketing department, and from there it goes to the sales team. Everyone within the organization thinks within its own specialties without considering consumer needs as a driving factor for innovations. This has, of course, implications on the business. So these were the challenges we are currently facing, but in fact this shows that things are getting more difficult than they were before. And also that is why we are playing a different ball game as a few years ago. To summarize this part, I'll give you 4 observations. In the past, we used the 80-20 Pareto rule as the golden rule. And today we see that the percentages shift to 60% of our clients being responsible for 40% of the revenue, and this will even be stronger in the future and go to a 50-50 proportion. The term loyalty will become fluffier and fluffier, and it gets more difficult to keep clients on your side. We also see that life cycles of Fortune 500 companies are getting shorter. While in the previous century their life cycle was 50 years, now this is only 15 years. A third observation is that companies launch more innovative products than ever before. But 70% of them, yes, this is a huge amount, fail. And the final observation is that technology does not have a single impact on our personal life, but especially on our professional life. Oxford University states that 45% of the American jobs will be done by computers in the next 20 years. The implications of this are huge. This is all to prove that our current management models have their limits. The models are still valid, that for sure, but we should be aware of the challenges of this century while using the models of the previous one. Here you see one of these models, and probably you know this one, namely it is the Ansoff matrix. This model defines 4 growth strategies with 2 axes being existing versus new markets and existing versus new products. For example, a company that has products in one market that are successful and thereafter tries to conquer another market or country with these products is following the market penetration strategy. And this is exactly what Tea Sugars is doing, being active in Western Europe for ages and now recently launching sugar products overseas in the US. So the model is still valid, but we should keep the previous challenges in mind while using it. And that's exactly what Benjamin Franklin already told us more than 300 years ago. If you do the same things over and over again, you should not expect a different outcome. And in the following part, this is what Bert will explain, taking the challenges into account. He will explain how we will make it possible to grow in the coming years.
Yes, thanks, Dries, for the introduction. Indeed, one of the first solutions to come to growth is to speed up your internal clock. One of the big challenges these days are to handle the big amount of data and consumer trends. One of the solutions is to speed up the internal clock of your company. Be sure you know the trends before these really become mainstream and other companies reap the benefits of it. Most organizations these days are really not in sync with the speed of the real world. One method that proved its merits before is bringing the consumer in the heart of your company or your organization and let them being involved in the whole product development process. By doing this, doing research and development can be done quicker and more adapted to what consumers really want. This helps to be aware of the trends when these are happening instead of being aware of trends when others already developed products or services as an answer to these trends. A decent knowledge of the consumers helps to stay ahead of the curve. You will be one of the first marketeers to be involved with the consumers and their needs, resulting in new product development adapted to those specific needs. A nice example is what happens today in the hotel sector. While many hotel chains are still focusing on having a mobile check-in and self-service, others such as Hyatt or Hilton are ahead of the curve. For example, on this picture, as you can see, they are currently experimenting to get access to your room via your mobile phone. You don't need to check in anymore, nor ask a key of your room at the front desk. Very convenient if you ask me. Also in the payment sector, these kind of mobile app trends are used. Starbucks, for example, announced in October that via their app you can order food or drinks while you are on your way to the shop, and you can even pay your bill via that app. So you no longer need to wait for your order or payment. Taco Bell, by the way, also recently announced a similar idea. To prove that big companies often struggle with new trends and are often lagging behind is the selfie stick trend, the trend of 2014. And probably some of you got even a selfie stick recently as a present for Christmas, for example. I'm quite sure this was not a famous brand such as Canon, Kodak or Pentax, but probably a very unknown brand. If you want to buy a selfie stick, then you will find brands such as Rolei, iProtect or Safi, all very unknown lean and mean startup companies who were flexible enough to quickly jump on this selfie stick trend while it was still very relevant for the consumers. The big brands, however, clearly lagged behind. To speed up that internal clock, it is important that collaboration has an organization-wide impact, involving various stakeholders in the company, depending on their relationship with consumers and their level within the organization. So connecting with consumers or customers is not only for the marketeers or managers of the company. Also, frontline employees that are in contact with consumers every day via customer service, for example, need to think this way. For instance, bus drivers, they also need to understand how their behavior and attitude impacts consumer perceptions. They should act every day from a consumer or user perspective as well. With Insights Consulting, we did a project to connect the staff of Unilever and more specifically more than 600 R&D people with the way English consumers lead their lives and use their products. Traditionally, as you probably know as well, an R&D department is a department that is very focused on technology-driven improvements without taking into account what consumers really want or need. This changed significantly for Unilever after their consumer immersion. Another example or research we did quite recently was for Dorel. Dorel is a company behind the brands Queenie and Maxi Cosi. And we conducted a consumer consulting board for them to reposition the Queenie brand towards a new target group of urban parents. So at this community, over 120 urban parents from 7 big cities in the world were invited to collaborate with us for 3 weeks. And in the end, they generated over 2,900 posts. And it had quite some impact on the brand and the company, by the way. First of all, the brand was completely repositioned towards the city lifestyle and could create relevant solutions for the urban parents. On this slide, you can see, in fact, the new print ad, and an old one. Now, I would like to have some interaction with you right now, so please listen very carefully now. Which one of these two print ads do you think is the new one? Is it the left one or is it the right one? You can write it down in the text box of the community chat. So which ad will be the new one, and which one is the new one? So the left one or the right one? I see some answers popping up. It's a mix, left, right, left, right. Interesting to see that the opinions are somewhat 50-50. But in fact, the correct one, the right one, is the new one. So the right one is a new one because Queenie learned that the brand needed to shift towards a more social context because of that community, taking into account the modern family. The focus should be on the child and the parents, not the looks of the mother. As you can see, the left one, which was the old one, you can see that the mother is wearing high heels. And this is something that should be less done in the future, because it should be more about the child and less about the fashion of the mother. So that's how you could have noticed it. Next to changes in branding and communication, the Consumer Consulting Board also helped Queenie in better prioritizing product innovations. For example, one of the results was that urban parents often use their strollers for grocery shopping, and mothers amongst you might know that as well. Queenie's shopping baskets were always rather small. Therefore, a project was initiated to redesign the strollers to make them more suitable for grocery shopping with a child. And finally, another outcome was that next to the product features, also new product developments were made in the fuzzy front end. The product development team learned that urban parents feel limited in the distance they can cover in the city compared to their life before they had kids. So this insight made the design team decide to rework a previously designed stroller concept, as you can see on this picture as well. It's a typical example of how the voice of the consumer can inspire product development teams and make product innovations more relevant. Another solution in this ever-changing world is to focus more on people which are more niche and less mainstream. Those consumers which are harder to reach with our products, services or brands, or those consumers who no longer buy our products are of more and more importance. Learn from the edges, from those who less often use your products, have a low NPS, etc. Learn what stops them from buying, what are their specific barriers, use them to create growth. For example, General Mills wanted to grow their brand Pillsbury in the US. So Pillsbury, you might not know them, but they have products such as pizza dough and ingredients. So to do so, they focused on the Hispanics, a growing community in the US, and how these Hispanics deal with food and what eating habits they have. They could gain trial amongst this target group, amongst these Hispanic households, because they gained consumer empathy and uncovered specific needs they had. One of the conclusions was that these Hispanics had no idea how they could integrate this typical American dough into their cultural Hispanic food traditions. So Pillsbury helped these Hispanic households to keep their cultural traditions, but including some American touches as well. And a last example I want to show you is that Lucozade Energy also learned from their edges. Lucozade is one of the biggest energy drinks in the UK and has a very long tradition to focus on social fun. Traditionally, energy drinks have a very dominant male target group. However, Lucozade wanted to enlarge the target group without alienating the original male ones. So to do so, they launched the Lucozade Energy Pink Lemonade. It's not just a new flavor they launched, they needed an elegant answer with a mainstream flavor on the shelf. That shelf until then looked very male with the colors blue and black. It's typical energy drinks colors, so very male colors. By the way, it was one of the most successful product launches in the UK in 2014. Then the following two solutions will be discussed by Dries again.
Thanks, Bert. Ready for the third challenge? I hope you are. Brand beats product. The brand does no longer stand out from the crowd by delivering a better service or quality. Consumers expect brands to be more than that. They expect brands to be engaging, and the added value mainly comes from the emotional experience. Consumers have higher expectations than ever, and that makes that they easily switch towards other brands, but also towards private labels. It is the emotional component that can bond them with your brand. A nice example is the Whopper campaign of Burger King. And in Brazil, they had the campaign where they snap you as you order Whopper, and they print your face on the front of the packaging, and afterwards they capture the reactions and they spread them globally. You should definitely look up this campaign because, in my opinion, it's a very, very good example of how brand beats product. Another example is Danone. Because of EFSA regulations, they are forced not to communicate any longer on the functional aspects of the yogurt, and now they communicate on the emotional aspects. Together with us, they are doing a structural community to understand their different target groups and to communicate better on these emotional aspects rather than the functional benefits. So brands can still beat the product, but should play on the emotions and show relevance on an individual level. Number 4, embrace we. I'm sure you have ever noticed how sport fans talk about their favorite sports team. Everything they say is about we. We won the game, we should not have used this tactic, luck was not on our side, it's we. So if your employees, customers and other stakeholders are talking about we, this is a sign that you are really doing a good job. In the next example, we see, for example, Alfa Romeo, and they have a hugely successful Alfisti community, which runs in several languages in multiple countries all over the world. And in these communities, lovers and owners of Alfa Romeo share stories, experiences, tips, and other things with each other. The next example is about Mobile Vikings, which is a mobile virtual network operator in Belgium, the Netherlands, and Poland. And we see that employees there really act like they are Vikings. So they play on the emotional aspect, but definitely also on the embrace we. You are one of us, and we are the same as you are. We understand who you are and what you need. And if you think about it yourself, do you already have a tattoo of your employer on your body? Well, it might sound like a joke, but actually there is someone at Insights that has a tattoo. We thought this was a great example of how to embrace we. And a final example of the embrace we is Van de Mortele. Van de Mortele Bakery is an innovation leader in frozen bakery products offered to professionals and industrial customers, but also retailers who sell those products as fresh finished products to the final consumer. They recently decided to make an investment in a high technology oven based on consumer feedback from the online community we did for them. And by doing this, Van de Mortele says to their customers, we do care about what you are looking for. We do care about your opinion. And now Bert will take you through the final 3 solutions.
Indeed. Traditional management practices believed for a long time in homogeneity, with organizations grouping individuals that are in fact mainly copycats of one another. However, in today's world, diversity becomes more and more important. By opening up to a more diverse set of people having different backgrounds, interests, and skills, we are all able to do better. Research even found that companies in the top quartile for gender or racial and ethnic diversity are more likely to have financial returns above average. A classic example on cherished diversity is Starbucks. The globalization of Starbucks and conquering some die-hard coffee countries where more people drink tea these days was for sure also possible because of their culture of diversity and inclusion. Starbucks is proud to stimulate a culture that values and respects this diversity and inclusion values. Another example is the United Nations, where people from all different nationalities work, but these employees of the United Nations get their own national holiday as a day off. So not necessarily the national holiday of the place where they work, but their own national holiday. Sorry. Another example of cherishing diversity is how Auckland Athletics baseball team and their manager Bill Bean shaped the team with a much lower budget than many other teams. Together with an analyst, they watched the bigger picture. Because of budget restrictions, all players of the major league were analyzed on their merits and where each player would fit the best to compose, in fact, the ideal team, instead of focusing on star players only, what other teams often do. Because of this specific type of method, they could compete with teams with a higher budget, such as the New York Yankees, who have a budget of about $125 million, while they had to deal with $41 million only. So the result, in fact, was that they got into the playoffs in 2002 and 2003. So it really paid off. Peer-to-peer connections are becoming more and more important as well as a solution to grow these days. Messages coming directly from marketeers are less attractive and relevant for consumers. They prefer the peer-to-peer connections. So be sure as a brand or as a company that these peer-to-peer connections are facilitated by your brand or product. You might know the Unicorn Club. This is a club of 39 US-based software companies founded after 2003. And these companies are valued more than $1 billion by investors. Now, on average, about 4 unicorns were born every year in the past decade, and but really all these companies are based on peer-to-peer connections, both in a business-to-business world, such as LinkedIn, for example, who is in the top, but also in a B2C world, such as Uber or Airbnb. And in fact, Airbnb is a very good example. To be honest, you don't have to use Airbnb any longer as a cheaper option to stay somewhere. Many hotels have cheaper options available. The reasons why many travelers choose Airbnb is because of the social, the human connection you have. The owners of the place you rent often give tips to go to a cultural event or a good restaurant. And these tips are often very different from the ones you would find in a traveler guide such as The Lonely Planet or Rough Guides. I don't know if you recently read the restaurant tips of your own city in one of those guides. These are usually not the restaurants you recently went to yourself. These are often the restaurants where you will find loads of tourists and often people from your own country sitting next to you. So more and more tourists are more searching for that authentic local connection instead of having other tourists sitting next to you in the restaurant. A last solution for growth has to do with the first challenge we named. We are one, but we are not the same. And the answer on that challenge is respecting the local culture and entity as a universal or global brand. And here we will have some interaction again. On this picture, you can see, in fact, 3 visuals of the 2015 catalog of IKEA. It's a Turkish one, a Chinese, and an American catalog. At first sight, they all 3 look the same, although there are 6 differences to spot on these catalogs. Let's get interactive and have a close look at the pictures and write down the differences you spot. So write down if you see any differences, find them and let us know. We're very curious about what you will find. Indeed, Stefan, you're already correct. The hood, the lamps. Ovens, yeah, indeed, else. Erika, price, indeed. I don't know the currency, although, but there are some differences in price probably as well, if it would be all dollars. So indeed, you can see some, you can find some differences if you look very carefully. The upper left one, for example, is a typical Turkish hood. The ovens and stoves are completely different as well. In some kitchens, you see both microwave ovens and the traditional oven, while on other pictures, such as the Chinese one, you only see one oven. So, with digital technology and by offering the same products, IKEA is very good at making their kitchens relevant for the local consumer, taking care of local habits and cultures. Local consumers are feeling at home in these kitchens immediately, which in the end will result probably in an increased buying intention to buy these products in the end. Another example is what Johnny Walker did. At the end of the 90s, in fact, they witnessed a drop in sales. So they started a campaign based on a universal value, which was the value to chase your dreams. And they used the slogan, as probably all of you know, keep walking. This slogan was a very global one. They also used it in a global way, but the execution, they executed it locally different, with locally known persons as execution. In China, for example, they used a Chinese philosopher, Lao Tzu, with the tagline, 1,000 miles begins with a single step. That's in fact a slogan and a person with whom Chinese consumers can identify with. Also in Germany, another example, they used someone else. They used Hannibal as an example, where they used the tagline, if there's not a way, we'll make the way. An example of how you should not do it is Fiat. They wanted to conquer the Chinese market with Richard Gere as spokesperson. Now, next to Richard Gere being a famous film actor, Richard Gere is also a big fan of Tibet. So it's needless to say that using Richard Gere on the Chinese market to promote Fiat, it's not really a good idea. Another example of globalization, this time in research, how we did it ourselves, how we used this globalization ourselves, we did for Philips, was the Sleep Well community. This was a 3-month project we did to assess the sleep market in the Asia-Pacific region and get insights in their sleeping routines with a specific funnel approach, as you can see on this slide. Since this was a medical topic, or quite a medical topic, it was more sensitive as well. So in order to draw the right conclusions on this unknown market for our researchers, most of us are not Asian, so we didn't know really the cultural context. We needed more that cultural context. So that's why we invited, in fact, for this research, 10 extra participants as our cultural experts to help us as co-researchers. And this resulted in the end, more than 14% of our conclusions were in fact challenged by and reshaped by them. So these were in fact the 7 solutions we had for you to grow as a company in a changing world. So first, speed up your internal clock, learn from the edges, brand beats product, embrace we, cherish diversity, peer-to-peer connections, and globalization. Maybe there might be even an 8th or 9th solution. It's not that we want to present you the holy grail on how to grow. This was just a list which can help you to grow and to think about and have some inspiration to grow as a company. But other examples of how you as a company are convinced it helped growing are of course very welcome as well. Anyway, if there is anything you currently miss in our solutions to grow in these hectic days, or you have any questions or remarks about this presentation, then it's now the moment to do so. So go ahead if you would have any questions or comments.
Thank you, Bert and Dries. Before we go to Q&A, I want to thank both of you to inspire our attendees. I already see one question from Els, and her question is regarding to solution one, the one speeding up your internal clock. And her question is, how can you involve mainstream consumers into the process of knowing the trends before they become mainstream?
Well, what we actually always advise to do is with an online community, an online platform where you are in direct contact with 100, 150 consumers, or with the target groups you really want to focus on. There you can, via 24-hour challenges or via deep dives, you can really connect with them. You are very close. You're very close with them and know what they are really thinking, what they spotted, trends they spotted, or things they see changing in the market. And you are also very agile to then adapt these things in your communication and to play a more relevant role for your specific target group or for these consumers. If that is an answer to your question.
Thank you, Dries, for answering that question. Els, I hope this was a clear answer to your question, and I think it was. Then another question from Helene. What is your view on mix of virtual and physical, so clicks and bricks?
Well, I think I'm also convinced, yeah, we are Insights Consulting, of course, so we mainly do online research, and we are convinced that with our consumer consulting boards, we can do most of the things in an online setting, and we can do it even better because of some specific reasons that online communities do compared to the more traditional ways of doing research. However, we are convinced as well that sometimes having a physical connection with your consumers help as well to even create more or better insights. For example, what we sometimes do for clients is doing kind of speed dating. So that speed dating is in fact what we do. We take some participants of communities along with us to presentations or workshops, and we do some speed dating with our clients, with employees of our clients, to get even more in touch with those consumers as well. But in fact, with communities, it's already very handy to get in connection and to do all kinds of types of research with it. I hope that's an answer to your question, Helene.
Thanks a lot, Bert. I don't see any additional questions, but as you can see, the contact details of Bert and Dries is on the slide. So should you have any additional questions or feedback, you can always contact us. We're happy to help you out later on as well. And tomorrow you will also receive a little satisfaction survey, and there you can find the full recording of the session and the contact details again as well. So I think we can wrap up here. I want to thank everyone for joining. We really hope you enjoyed the session, that it has inspired you. And just keep an eye on our Smartees website, as we are always offering both online and offline sessions. Thanks. Bye.